Welcome back to Behind the Bloom podcast. I'm J Schwanke, and this week, RJ and I are bringing you another companion episode, this time revisiting Season 1, Episode 104, Carnations, Family, and Flowers. This one is especially close to my heart because it shares the story of my own family's floral history as a fourth-generation florist. I've got deep roots in flowers, and you'll hear even more about my grandpa, Carnation Joe. It's a very personal episode filled with memories, family traditions, and of course, plenty of flowers. We hope you go back and watch that Life in Bloom episode because it's such a special one. For now, let's dive deeper together right here on Behind the Bloom podcast.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We are going to talk about carnations today.
Yes. And this is another one of our companion episodes.
My favorite flower.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much history. It's really hard to say. But I mean, so, you've heard me say many things, but carnations have a very, very special place in my heart because how that all happened. So yeah, it is a companion episode to episode 104.
Yeah. We talked, in one of I think our first episode, kind of your backstory, Jay, and how you got into this. And, we know you're a fourth generation florist, but this was so much fun to watch because it really got all the way back, starting with like your great grandfather getting into your grandfather, Carnation
True.
Joe. Like this was just so much fun to learn like your whole backstory and where you got to where you are. And it was so much fun to see all the pictures too, to see pictures of little Jay. And I watched this with Amanda a couple times. We went and rewatched it and we were just loving all the like old pictures of your family and everything.
There are tons of pictures. So there's a wonderful lady, Helene Larson. She had Larson Studio in Fremont, Nebraska. She used to win awards with pictures of me.
Oh, okay.
So then she started doing all of the pictures. So I would have photo shoots a couple times a year. And I would go in and they would have all these props and stuff. And I would dress up in different things and we would do. And there's thousands of pictures.
And starting at how old?
Oh God. Well, I mean, the photo shoots probably started when I was 3 or 4.
Okay. Yeah.
The first, when I was born, they started the Jay Says advertisements. And so my baby picture in the, in the crib in the hospital, in the little Lucite container thing, that was the first Jay Says ad. And we had an ad in the paper every day. And so it would say Jay Says, and then it would be some offer that the greenhouse would have. And so we lived in Fremont, Nebraska. It was a town of 18,000 people, 20,000 people about. It's still, the city's still there. It's 30 miles outside of Omaha. We had a greenhouse and flower shop, and we had 7 acres of greenhouses under glass, and we grew all the flowers that we sold. So there was a carnation house, there was a rose house, there was fields that had gladiolas in them, fields that had delphinium in them. There was a poinsettia house. There was a chrysanthemum house. There was a stephanotis house. There was a house where we grew gardenias. There was a house where we grew orchids.
Wow.
All of these places were places that I could run through as a kid. We were also creating a campaign, and my parents used me as promotion and marketing. I mean, that's really what it was. And so people who were customers loved the ads. I don't know if I loved the ads so much as soon as I got into school.
Oh, okay.
People started realizing that was me, and kids are cruel. So, there was I got a lot of teasing about it. And
I didn't think about that part of it, Jay.
when I was 14, I passed it off to my nephews, and that was a really happy day for me.
Okay.
Because I passed it off to Jeremy and John, and then they were in there as JJ and JJMH say, and that lasted for a little while. So it didn't last as long as probably my parents had hoped, but it was very effective. It was a very effective way for us to sell product. That's how those pictures all kind of came about. But yeah, so those ads would, and like there's one that was like, this is my grandma, she's neat. And she's neat. That's what Jay says. This is my grandma, she's neat. So there was stuff like that, or
And this is your grandma Lily?
This is my grandma Lil, yeah.
Okay, because I loved hearing about Carnation Joe, and then his wife is Lily, who was named after a flower. So going back generations.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think fair enough. Let's start this way.
Okay.
So Charles and Katie were my great-grandparents, and Charles and Katie came over from England. Charles was the 13th son of the landscaper at Kensington Palace,
Oh, okay.
and he realized that there was going to be nothing there for him in England. And so he asked for his inheritance early, came to America with $1,500 in his pocket with his wife Katie, and they were traveling to California to become a nurseryman. And they got off the train in Fremont, Nebraska, and there was a bankrupt greenhouse that was for sale for $1,500.
Oh, okay.
And he bought that greenhouse, and that greenhouse raised palms for people's Victorian parlors. And so then over the years, they expanded it into more greenhouses, more greenhouses, more greenhouses. And when we talk about these 7 acres of greenhouses, they were very unusual. They were dug down 4 feet in the ground, and then they had a cap on top of them. They were about 6.5 feet tall from the inside, but the reason they were dug 4 feet in the ground was to be below the frost line.
Oh, okay.
So then the glass on top would be a greenhouse effect, then that would heat up those greenhouses. My grandfather, so we had these glass greenhouses, and the worst thing when you have glass greenhouses is to have hailstorms. And
Sure.
we would get hailstorms in Nebraska with hail that was like as big as a softball.
Oh my gosh.
And it would hail everything out, and then you had to clean up all the glass, and it would destroy all the crops underneath it. And so hailstorms are a bad thing. I think in total, we were hailed out 8 times. And the last time, my dad was like, "We're not cleaning this up, we're bulldozing it." And they started to put up more modern greenhouses that were bigger, were covered with plastic or Lexan. And
Oh,
these smaller greenhouses were about 8 foot across and about 30 feet long. So they weren't very big, and so 7 acres of them, there was probably like 60 maybe of them, in different areas and stuff. I mean, and they all kind of centered around our area where we had a big boiler and stuff, and we ran the whole thing by coal, which was also the reason why we had a coal furnace in our house, because we would get
okay.
a train load of coal to heat the greenhouses. So that was all part of it. Well, so Katie and Charles had 4 children, and they had they had Charles the second, they had Kay, they had Joe, my grandpa, Carnation Joe. Those kids were involved in the business. And so ultimately, when they went to sell off the business, we had a greenhouse in Florida where we grew plumosa.
Oh, okay.
And so that we would always have plumosa fern. And we had another farm in Kansas where we grew peonies. So we would always have peonies for Memorial Day because it was far enough south that the peonies would come in earlier. And so then when my grandmother got rid of the business, she gave my grandpa the greenhouses in Nebraska. She gave Charles the greenhouse in Florida. She gave Kay the peony farm in Kansas, and gave Rose all the operating capital, gave her all the money. And my Aunt
Okay.
Rose took a trip around the world. But it left my grandpa with not a lot of money and not a lot of things to do. The other funny story about the greenhouse was one night my great-grandfather Charles came home to Katie, and he said, "I lost the business in a card game at the Eagles Club."
Oh, no.
And she was like, "What?" And so she got up out of bed, she went out to the safe, opened it up, took out her own money, went back to the Eagles Club and won it back. And then it was always her greenhouse. It was not Charles's greenhouse after that. So, and then Charles also died unexpectedly because he was going down to check on the peony farm. And he came back. He was checking on it in like April, and there was a freak snowstorm, and he drove his Model T all the way home to Nebraska with his head out the window so he could see,
Oh.
and caught pneumonia and died.
Oh, no.
But then Katie lived to be like 96, and she
Oh,
was
wow.
bedridden. And so my grandpa would always joke about that. They had to take every flower arrangement to her and have her approve it before they could send it.
Oh, wow.
And I was just kind of like, "Oh my," and I said, "Why didn't you just say there wasn't very many orders today?" And he was like, "Oh, no, no. You didn't know your great grandma Katie. She would have known," and I was like, "Okay." So that was interesting too. So then Carnation Joe and his lily, he would always wear a red carnation. He would go out into the greenhouse where we grew carnations and go grab it and put it in his lapel every day. There's a story that my grandpa used to tell about the reason that he didn't graduate from high school was because there was a fight one day after school. And the principal went to break up these fight of these 2 guys that were fighting. And when the principal went to split up the 2 guys, one of the guys hit the principal and knocked him out.
Oh my gosh.
And the last thing the principal saw was the red carnation. And it was my grandpa who punched him and knocked him out. So then my grandpa
Oh,
didn't
no.
graduate from high school because he was, because he got expelled. So there's that. But I mean, so the carnation was his thing. And so my favorite story was always that he felt he was a florist 24 hours a day because he wore a red carnation all day long and slept with his lily at night. And that was my
Aw.
grandma. I was born at the flower convention on my grandma's birthday. So I was born on March 7th, and that was my grandma's birthday. She would give all of her grandkids $5 for their birthday, except for me, she gave 50.
Oh.
And my cousin Billy was always like, why does he get 50? And my grandma was like, because he was the one that was smart enough to be born on my birthday. And so Grandma Lil and I were always very close. And
Oh.
so, we
And
just
she's the
like,
one that's Swedish as well, right?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah. So
okay.
she was the
Yeah,
Swede.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, as my grandpa said, she's a Swede, and you can always tell a Swede. You just can't tell them much. That's what he would say about her. So
Oh.
that was always a big deal. That was always funny.
Yeah.
Haha. So yeah, but yeah. So they, and so the carnation thing ran pretty deep. Then my dad always started wearing the red carnation too, and I thought about it. And after my grandfather died, I tried wearing them, but my dad always wore suit coats. Always. Every day wore a suit coat. My mom and dad were also the famous matching couple. So you can go on Google and you can Google the famous matching couple on the Today Show, and you will see my mom and dad on the Today Show with Al Roker. They wore matching clothing. So my mother would have a dress that would match my dad's tie, and it was made out of the same fabric.
Oh, okay.
And so then my dad had a whole bunch of ultra suede coats in different colors that would ultimately match. They had 147 different outfits that matched, and they
Wow.
would wear them every day, and they would choose them together and wear the tie and wear the coat, or wear the dress, and then he'd wear a matching suit with a boutonniere. And so the carnation was always a big deal for him too, because he was always wearing a suit coat. My dad did not own a pair of jeans. Did
Okay.
not. And hated the color blue too, just as another side note. Hated the color blue. I tried the carnation thing, but I do like to wear them when I go to events when I'm wearing a sports coat. I like to wear carnations, and people inevitably then will tell me about how it reminds them of my grandpa or my dad, because they
Aw.
were infamous in the flower industry and everybody knew who they were.
Oh, yeah.
From that aspect, I think that, people expect the carnation, and I think it's a good thing.
Do you wear a red carnation?
When I can.
Yeah, or yeah, when you're saying when you do, yeah, is the same color.
It's so interesting though, and I will tell you, I wear a lot of purple ones because of Suntory being one of our underwriters, and Suntory Flowers makes the Moon Series carnation, and so there's I think 8 or 10 different purple colors that. And I think they look really good. So,
Oh, yeah.
but I mean, if there's a carnation around, I'll wear it. There's a saying about, for Mother's Day, you used to wear a white carnation if your mother was alive, but a red carnation if your mother was dead.
Oh, okay.
So the way I always remember it, white alive and red for dead. That is not that there is a rhyme, and there's a very, very nice, kind rhyme about it, I'm sure. But that was the way. And so that's why red and white carnations were so important also as something that we grew in the greenhouses, because people would want red or white ones denoting their mother's status for Mother's Day when I was a kid. I mean, and that's I'm talking back in the 60s. That's
Mhm.
when that happened. So yeah. The thing about it too is that one of my favorite things in the whole world is having a glass, like a little juice glass with a red carnation in it on the sink. Because both in my dad's house and my grandpa's house, at the end of the day, they would take their carnation out, they would cut it and put it in a little juice glass and let it hydrate again for the next morning, and then they'd put it on again.
Oh.
At all of our houses, there was that carnation in, and so sometimes, and I think this is one of the episodes, you will see episodes where there's a red carnation sitting in a glass on the sink.
Oh.
We just throw it up occasionally, and even like when we've been in Kathy's kitchen, in the new kitchen that we shoot in, sometimes I have a carnation sitting up there, and that's
Oh.
just an homage to those people. Is
Oh.
that that there was always that carnation sitting around.
That's
So
so
yeah,
sweet. I wanna look for it in episodes now. Yeah.
and I do believe it's in this one. So yeah.
So, what is it about carnations, like, aside from kind of family history, Jay, that you love so much? Because you talked about, as a kid walking through and
So there's a smell about authentic carnations. Heirloom varieties of carnations have a clove scent that's very strong. Heirloom varieties of carnations have a very ragged edge of the flower. It's almost like it's laciniated. It's almost like it's been torn off. Modern carnations do not because, again, if they have a fragrance and if they have that laciniated edge, they don't last as long. So sometimes the carnations that are modern ones don't have as much fragrance. They've been bred to last longer. Like the Florigene Moon Series ones are amazing colors, but they don't have a carnation fragrance. But they'll last 30 days in a vase. 30 days.
Wow.
Most carnations will last that long. I mean, I put all of my carnations in Chrysler Professional 3, and I always say that I have carnations in a vase for 30 days. It's not unexpected because carnations are so long-lasting and durable, and they're very colorful. There's so many different colors that they come in. I love the lime green ones. I love the mustard. There's a mustard yellow one that I love. So, I mean, they really are pretty, and so there's that. The other thing, too, is that the foliage on them is blue. When you go into a greenhouse that has carnations in it that are growing, the foliage is blue.
Cool.
In this episode, there is the Akiyama Nursery, which was I was told, the last carnation grower in the United States. And so that's why we went there to see them.
Oh, okay.
Ben was my contact, their son, and I had heard from my friend Robert Kitayama that they were still growing carnations. When you walked into that greenhouse, your eyes saw that blue coloration, but your nose smelled that clove fragrance. It was so heady. It was just so evident there.
Cool.
They had those bamboo, because one of the things about carnations is they grow and they have to be supported as they grow up because the stem is relatively thin and because the head is big, they'll want to fall over. So you have to have these grid works that get moved up with them. And those were all made with bamboo, and him and his dad tying those. We determined millions
Oh my gosh.
they had tied over the years to have them go up. Now, really interesting story. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got a letter from a gentleman who had watched this show.
Oh, yeah,
And he
yeah.
said, "The Akiyamas, I'm familiar with them. I'm friends with them." And I said, "Well, I understand that." So my friend Robert Kitayama had told me they had closed and that they had bulldozed it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Not true.
Wait,
Not
really? No
true.
way. That's amazing.
So I find out that Ben is still growing a few varieties of carnations and a few varieties of minis, and
Oh.
that his son is now growing hops. So Ben's son
Oh.
has joined and is growing hops for craft breweries. Now, what's really cool about this is I want to get back out there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we were in Watsonville this year, and if I would have known that, I would have gone. And I said, "Is it in the same place? What's Ben's email address?" And this gentleman was so kind. He sent me all that information. And
Oh,
then
exciting.
he had told me that Mr. Akiyama has passed away. So Mr. Akiyama has passed away, but Mrs. Akiyama has not. And
Oh, okay.
she golfs every day.
Oh my gosh.
And
Good for her.
if you remember in the video that we took and in this show, she said, "We can't retire because he wants to work every day."
Yeah, they were
So I
adorable.
think now
Yeah.
that he's gone, she gets to golf every day. So I think that that's really wonderful. But
Yeah.
she was the sister to another childhood friend of mine's
Oh.
mother. And so her nephew was Roger Yamamoto. And Roger Yamamoto and I grew up being very, very good friends along with the Kitayama brothers. And so she knew Roger's mom, whose name was Rose as well. And so
Oh.
it's just the whole flower industry is very, very close-knit, and it's a very close industry. There are people who are flower lifers. That's what we usually call them, is it's a flower lifer we're not gonna get out of this business unless you carry us out for feet first,
Oh.
you know? So,
Yeah.
but I'm excited, and I'm really, really excited because I wanna go back and see what Ben is still doing. Ben is also a high school coach.
Oh, okay.
And so he coaches several sports. I think he coaches wrestling and basketball and maybe football. I'm not positive, but he's still coaching. The day that we were there, this is so crazy. Ben had back surgery because he had
I
this
saw
horrific
he was in a brace in
brace,
the
right?
episode. Okay, yeah.
And so I said, "Oh, well, we can just do this with your mom and dad." And he's like, "No, no, 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 I need to be there. I need to be there, and I need to be talking to my mom and dad." And I was like, "Okay." And so he's just one day off of surgery there, and I was just like, "Please, please, please be careful." And he's like, "I'm so drugged up, I don't even," it was afterwards I said to him, I said, "Do you even remember what you said?" And he was like, "No, I don't." But he said, "I was so glad to be able to watch it and see." And so
Yeah.
that was actually, and that segment was actually a pickup from the California Grown Experience. And the California Grown Experience was trying to find the last American grown carnation grower because there isn't one that I know of besides Ben, and that he's still there and he's still growing some. I want to go see. But
Yeah.
he basically just sells them at farmers markets or to people who come and buy them out of buckets right at his farm every year.
Wow. How lucky to be in that area. Can you ima yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
right? I mean, I would go every day.
Yeah.
And he said, and this gentleman who wrote to me goes and makes wreaths and then takes wreaths to the veteran cemetery. And so he used the carnations for that too. And that's just another cool thing that happens with carnations is carnations are very, very important set piece flowers. So when you see like a cross made out of flowers, or you see a heart, or you see a Bible, or you see whatever that thing might be, it's almost always made out of carnations or chrysanthemums, because those are the things that are durable enough to be stuck into a form and sit there for many days and not wilt or go down.
Okay, I
And
gotcha.
so, in fact, with a Suntory, we do other shows for Suntory, and we did one this year about using carnations for flower forms. And so I made a heart that looks like it's an ombre heart with the different colors of the Ocean Series carnations, and then I also made a wreath ring that swirls, and it's
Okay.
just using the different colors. And it's really dynamic when you start to look at that and realize how much, and that's why carnations kind of got a bad rap, is they were used a lot for funerals because they're long lasting, they're durable, they were fragrant, they were inexpensive, they come in a lot of different colors. So that's kind of why they got pigeonholed there with gladiolas, because gladiolas are also long lasting and colorful and durable. So yeah.
Okay.
Support the joy of flowers. The Life in Bloom Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to flower education and inspiring a love of flowers in everyone. The foundation helps fund the production of J Schwanke's Life in Bloom on public television, making it possible for viewers across the country to enjoy the beauty and benefits of flowers. The foundation also provides free flower education to high schools, colleges, and floriculture programs through ubloom.com, helping students and future florists bloom in their own careers. Your donation in any amount makes a difference. Plus, all contributions are 100% tax deductible. If you'd like to help us continue sharing the power of flowers, visit the lifeinbloomfoundation.org to donate today. Thank you for your support. I have started collecting carnation stuff.
Yeah, I loved seeing your collection in this episode. There were so
Yeah,
many cool
so
things.
there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. I think carnations became a big thing because of carnation evaporated milk or dry milk, and people making milk with dehydrated milk products. And so carnation being the logo for a milk company, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of drinking glasses that have red carnations on them. There was a lot of postcards that were done. There's a lot of they carnations were popular for postcards in general. But then that there's, tablecloths, and there's embroidery things, and there's, compacts from, women's compacts
You showed
from,
that compact in the episode that was
yeah,
so yeah, yeah.
and there was a pin I gave to my mom, and I don't even know if I got it back, because I always told mom I wanted it back. But mom liked to wear carnation pins, and there was a carnation pin that matched that compact.
Oh, cool.
I have one that was these people made it's like a little dome, and it's a live red carnation from a casket spray that was sealed in the lucite.
Oh, wow.
And then people gave it away as like a remembrance of the funeral.
Oh,
I found that. I mean, I'm always searching
wow.
on eBay. So, I mean,
I was gonna ask where do you look? Yeah, do you go to vintage shops, or is it mostly eBay, or
It's all places. So
Yeah.
I mean, I love an antique store, so I'm always looking for something that has a carnation involved with it. But then also on eBay, I will just occasionally put in vintage red carnation and see what comes up. Because I do for the collection, I try and keep them red. You can go, my friend Barbara has a picture of white carnations in her house that I just love. But man, it's if you start collecting all the colors, I think I just try and stick to red.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they all kinda match too, which is nice. Like, when you had everything out together, it looked really cool because it all kinda matched and
And I
yeah.
wish I had a place that it could live out all the time. We met our friend Barbara in California for a meeting that we went to just recently, and we hadn't seen her for a couple of years. We went to her house. Her house is so adorably curated. It's just it's like being in the best vintage store ever that's all curated by color and I wish that there was just a place for me to have more of the red carnation stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
And I have specific pieces that I really like. I have a teacup from England that looks just like a carnation, and so that has the calyx as the bottom of it and then the petals around the lip of it, and it
Oh, so the cup itself is shaped like a
looks like a
carnation?
carnation.
Oh, how
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Oh,
So and it's little, so it can be out, and I have a red carnation. So there were buttons that they made for Mother's Day, so you would wear a red carnation button or a white carnation button, depending upon if your mother was living or dead.
okay.
And so I have found the red one. I've not and I've probably seen the white one, but I probably didn't pick it up because it wasn't red. So, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's just the way that it works. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so but the carnations are a big part
Yeah.
and my dad was famous for my dad could put more carnations in a casket saddle than any human I ever knew.
Oh,
And so when my dad died, I had to make the casket spray. I wanted to make sure I could get that many carnations in there too. So that was like a big deal is
okay.
that, I can remember, like I changed my dad's carnation when he was cause we had a lot of visitation cause he was so famous in the flower industry and I would change his carnation, and and it was funny. I just found myself talking to him. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna change this carnation out. Here we go. Let's get this all fixed up. Now
Yeah.
you look great. You look really good. Your carnation's all freshened up and you'll be happy.
Uh,
And I mean, I think that that's just part of, and so then at my dad's funeral, we, I gave the eulogy and I, it was so important for my dad to reach people with flowers. He dedicated his entire life to flowers and flowers and the flower industry was more important to my dad than anything. I mean, even more than us kids. It was just the flower industry was the most important thing to him. That was it. There was nothing else. The
okay.
most important thing. And that led to so many things. Because I mean, he helped start the American Floral Endowment. He was the president of the Society of American Florists. He did outreach programs to Japan about floristry. There's just so many things that he did. And so at the end of the funeral, we invited everybody to live a little bit like Mel Schwanke and to
Oh,
take a red carnation with them. And so a lot of
oh,
people put them on, and a lot of people we just had buckets of them at the back of the church so they could just take them and go out.
oh,
And
that's
so
really sweet.
yeah, it was just a really nice. He would have loved the. I'm sure he did love that. I mean, they're around all the time, and it's that's just part of it.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
part of the way the carnation thing continues to grow and be a big deal. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And now, Jay, you're like the largest advocate for flowers in the world. I mean, it's like this torch has
it's
been
very
passed and passed and passed.
yeah, it's very kind of
Do you
you.
ever, yeah, I mean, do you ever kind of take a moment to think about kind of where you're at and the impact that you've had? I mean, you talked about 120 million households, and I mean, people. I mean, Jay, you're
It's
have
crazy,
a pretty
right?
incredible reach and are such an incredible advocate. I just hope that you take a moment sometimes and think like, wow, I've taken it to the next step.
Right. It's an interesting thing because I think
Mhm,
that we've kept the concept of it very small. I mean,
mhm,
in that you saw what our productions are like,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
w- I always wanted a television show about cut flowers, and it was because my dad taught me as a kid that it was very important to always have flowers. And then the Dr. Haviland Jones, all of her studies that talk about the health and wellness benefits that flowers have. I think that that's the important part for everyday people. I always wanted the show, and as my mom, would say, "You're not Carol Burnett." And I was like, that wasn't my intention to be like Carol Burnett, but it was my intention to have a show about cut flowers that could touch people the way that it's actually doing it. So I mean, it is interesting that all of our intentions and all of those things came to pass. I am glad that we were guided by our friends at American Public Television to be part of the exchange program so that our show is given to everyone for free. I am glad that we were able to create our own through American Public Television's help, to create our own nonprofit so that people can, also donate to us, but also help us keep that flower show on television. If we were in a position where people were paying for our show, it wouldn't be shown near as much. It wouldn't be. I mean, public television stations do not have budgets for that. And they have important things that they have to do. They have to take care of their areas and make sure that they're reaching all their rural customers and things like that. So us being part of that also made it advantageous to be out there. I joke about it, and it's true though, is I was born for this job. This was the job I was always leading up to. I mean, and if you look at all of the stops and all of the places that opportunity guided me down the right path. Being born on my grandmother's birthday, being born at a flower convention, being born to a fourth generation family business, going to a high school where my high school guidance counselor realized that I should go into the flower business and not be a zookeeper, that I became an advocate for businesses in the flower industry, and I did tens of thousands of shows across the United States teaching florists how to be better florists. And then having that migrate into an evolution and be a show for consumers to learn how flowers make them feel better
Mhm.
is extremely important. And I am very fortunate. I mean, it's unbelievable when people use my name in the same sentence as Mr. Rogers or Bob Ross or Dr. Seuss, or I never could have dreamed that that would have happened. I would say that it's my intention. Sure. I mean, it's our intention to reach as many people as we possibly can about flowers, but, that it would make me that person is I will tell you, it's fun to be we were with our niece Grace in California, and we just went to this little French restaurant. We were having lunch, and we're sitting there, and this lady came up, and I was talking to the waiter. The lady and man, Grace said to them, "Do you want to meet Mr. Schwanke?" And they were like, "Yes, we watch him every week."
Oh.
And so then I always remember that too, is that I always take a picture. I always wanna know where they watch. I wanna know what station they watch on. I wanna know what their favorite episode is. I wanna talk to them, and they're always and I think it is interesting because 'cause they're always just like, "Well, we don't wanna bother you." And I'm just like, "Yeah, because 'cause I'll go on and on and on with you because I wanna know about your experience too." And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that that's an important part about it too, and so I guess I'm just dedicated to that, and I do find it fun, and I do find it interesting. It's very funny. I don't get it a lot in Grand Rapids. I don't get it here in town when I'm at the grocery store or anything like that.
Really?
But
Oh, that's surprising.
airports, always.
Okay.
On the street, in California, always.
Okay.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it pops up at there's an antique show coming up this weekend that I always go to. Always the antique show.
Oh.
Always the antique show. Somebody's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, what are you buying?" I'm looking for stuff for the show, and I think that that's always part of it, and I always remember, and I'm gonna use Bette Midler I love Bette Midler, and I think she's wonderful. I had always heard that she was mean and that don't ask her for an autograph and stuff like that, and she was on a talk show one time, and she said that she did not like it when people intruded into her life, and a gentleman came up to her and wanted an autograph, and she said, "No, I'm not gonna do it." And he said, "I hate you, and I will never watch another one of your movies ever again. You're a mean person. You're a hateful person. How dare you be so mean to me when I'm a fan of yours?" And she said, "That changed my life."
Oh, okay.
And that made me realize that, you know, that those people, and she will say now, she does interviews where she said, "I'm much nicer now than I used to be."
Oh.
I just always think about that because I don't want it to be a bad experience.
Mhm.
And I've like when I met P. Allen Smith, he was wonderful. He's just he's a wonderful person. And I've met people that, I've met movie stars, I've met famous people that are nice and they're wonderful. And I just think it's really interesting that I want to be thought of that way too. I want to be thought of as he was really nice. He made time for us and he took a picture. Steve Martin has a card that he gives out that says, "I met Steve Martin." And so he
That's
gives them
amazing.
that card, and he's like, "So that you can prove to people that you met me.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's this. I met Steve Martin." So I like that, and I think that it's kind of it's an important part about it's a really important part about public television.
Yeah.
I mean, public television is different. and
Mhm.
and we should all be accessible. And like when I met Rick Steves for the first time, when I met Lydia, I was kind of goo-goo, and it was just kind of like, this is really exciting, but they're because we form a relationship with those people we watch or the people that we listen to. We
Yeah.
form a relationship with them, and it's very one-sided until they have the opportunity to meet you. So then it should be a relationship. It should be a
Right.
friendship. It should be something that happens. So
Oh,
that's the good thing about it.
I love
So yeah.
that, Jay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. So yeah, this was an episode about that. I mean, it's just kind of like I think sometimes that we need to maybe revisit Carnations again and uh and do another episode about them just
Yeah, should we
because
do a whole episode on carnations? Because we didn't get as much into the flowers. I feel like there was so much to unpack in this episode. I'm so
it's
glad we got
true.
to all the
It's
everything that we did,
true.
but I feel like
Yeah.
we're running low on time, but I
We
feel
are,
like
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Amanda collects vintage glasses too. I
Oh,
love
yes.
that.
Yeah. So, we have a bunch of vintage, just, like, different, like, Western glasses. We have some, like, Golden Girls
Yeah, yeah.
glasses. We have these, like
Uh-huh.
they're kinda cheesy, but they're, like, McDonald's glasses, like, the very old, like, Ronald McDonald and, like, Grimace and those and, like, the Hamburglar that she
Love
found.
it.
But so we
Love
love
it.
going to, like, vintage shops. We just have a ton of fun going to vintage shops, and so now we're gonna look out for red carnations for you. So if we're ever
Yeah.
at a vintage
The
shop and we see, yeah, red
there is
carnation,
a
we'll pick
whole
something.
line of flower glasses that are all different
Oh,
varieties of them, and
okay.
there's hundreds.
Oh, okay,
And
cool,
so I started a small collection of those. I think we'll try and use those on an upcoming show. But see, now
cool.
when I do that upcoming show, then I need to have Amanda come back and be on the show.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That would be great because
She's ready.
I love vintage glassware. I think
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah.
I mean, it's a vase. It's a
Right.
vase. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's nothing better than like, a glass that has Lily of the Valley on it with Lily of the Valley in it. Or if it's a carnation, have carnations in it. Or if it's calendula, have calendula in it. It should have those. And
Yeah.
I guess if you have a grimace glass, you should have grimace
Right, right.
stuck in the glass. That'd be perfect.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. I think it's a fun collectible piece for us, and it tells stories.
yeah,
It's about telling those stories, and I do believe that there is sincerely something about recapturing our youth. I think
yeah.
that that's my fascination with antiques is I'm trying to recapture those things I saw or had,
Oh, yeah,
or that it's something that someone else had and I was envious of it and I want to collect that too.
oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
there's you saw the house.
Yes, yes. You have a lot to be
There's a
collected, and
lot.
it's
There's a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
that is collected and a lot to be unpacked. We could talk about it for weeks. It's true. So yeah, there's that.
Oh, and I just had one more point I wanted to make too,
Certainly.
just on family kind of shaping you, because I wanted to call out. So my grandparents, they didn't do this as a career, but eventually when they retired, they worked at this wildlife refuge down in Florida,
Okay.
and so it was on Sanibel Island, and it's called Ding Darling, and so we would vacation there all the time. But once my grandparents retired, they actually worked at Ding Darling, and my grandpa was on the board. And so as like a young kid, I would go there and we would go birding. We would look at manatees and crocodile or alligators. There was one crocodile on the island. And so nature was always kind of like a thing that was, my grandparents got us into. And it was always like when we would vacation down there. And so I kind of, I hadn't connected the dots necessarily, but kind of looked to that as like one of the things that initially got me into birding is like, because
Of
I'm a
course.
newer birder. I've only been birding for, my adult life. It's not like something that I've done since I was a little kid,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I point to that as like, wow, that was kind of what really piqued my interest, in nature in general. And so I feel like I kind of the same way that you kind of had talked about your grandpa and things like that. I just kind of look back like, wow, it
Yeah.
does kind of there's certain things in your family that just get passed down. Just I don't know
Through
if it's
your
lifestyle or
DNA,
through
I
your
think,
DNA.
too.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's there because I think people
yeah.
talk about that, and my grandfather was a storyteller, so that's where I get the storytelling, also from Dorothy, who was my nanny, and she was a storyteller as well, but I think that the storytelling and I think that as you say that, the fact that you got to go there and spend time with them there, everybody always asks me if you have a regret, and I have one regret, and my regret is that I did not go with my grandma and grandpa on a road trip to his brother's. We were in Toronto, and he wanted to go home via Florida and drive home and look for a steak the size of a toilet seat. That was his thing. He
Okay.
wanted to go to truck stops and go and say, "Do you have a steak the size of a toilet seat?" And occasionally we would find them. I said no. And I was
Oh,
16 years old, and I drove them home to Nebraska instantly in less than, like 14 hours. And, I wanted to get home and I wanted to get away from them. Really, really bad idea. And I
oh,
should have spent more time with them. My grandpa was a fix-it guy. He was a tinkerer. He tinkered with everything. He was creative. He had dentures. He smoked 3 packs of Camel no filters every day. When he was dying, he said, "I think I had one too many cigarettes." And I said, "I don't think it was one.
oh,
I think it was, just a lot."
yeah. Oh,
He was born on Thanksgiving Day in 1900, so we always celebrated Thanksgiving at my mom's house, and he would always eat in the room he was born in, because he was born in the room that the house my mom and dad lived in. My great-grandparents built a Sears home, so
oh,
it
okay,
was a Sears home.
cool. Uh-huh.
So, but I mean, I just think that that's the and my grandpa would pick me up and take me to school, and he always had a story to tell me, and we'd go pick cattails or we'd go pick delphinium. Or I think that those special times with those people give us something that we treasure for the rest of our lives. And it
Yeah.
seems like the same thing with you, is that
Mhm.
that's where it was born. And it was
Right.
unearthed with my grandpa teaching me about sensitive plants, or how you touch the plant and it'd fold up, or I mean, it's all those little pieces and parts. And he was also, people come up to me to this day and say, I went to a kindergarten, like what do you call that? Like when the kindergarten kids take a field trip.
Oh,
The
yeah,
A
yeah.
kindergarten field trip to Green's Greenhouses, and your grandpa gave the tour, and I remember that.
Oh, how cool.
So I have some old footage of my grandpa giving a tour, and I really truly
Oh,
relish that I have that, because some of his stories are in there and some of his stuff is in there. And it's just the fact that you can turn on something and see a video of somebody who's gone for 1986. I mean,
mhm.
he's been gone since that long. So it's like visiting with him again and being able to visit him
Oh,
and
that's
and do
incredible
that.
that you
So
have
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy for you that you have that as well. And I think it's just such a big deal
Oh,
that, because I think grandparents influence us more than parents sometimes,
I
because
agree.
they
Yeah.
have they have they don't have any rules they have to
Right.
adhere to. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like, we just have the fun part.
Right,
Go
right.
go back to your parents for discipline.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you.
Alright. Yeah, thank you,
Thanks
Jay.
for
Yeah.
the great questions about this episode, and I would
Oh,
encourage everybody to
thanks.
watch 104. You can watch it on uBloom, you can watch it on PBS.org, PBS app. It's not behind the paywall anywhere there. And then you can also catch the companion episode with it on YouTube from Behind the
Yes.
Bloom as well. So there's that too. So, all right.
Alright.
Well, thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Jay.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on Behind the Bloom podcast with J Schwanke and RJ Pohl. If you loved what you heard, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And share it with a friend to help us spread the joy, one bloom at a time. Thank you for taking the time to slow down with us. And hopefully you left feeling a little lighter and inspired to try something new. Make sure to join us next week for a brand new episode. Thanks for being here with us, Behind the Bloom. Hey, just one more thing. If you love flowers, you've got to check out ubloom.com. It's the online home of J Schwanke's Life in Bloom, where you can stream every episode for free. Plus, you'll find behind the bloom videos, my blog, show recipes, and so much more. There's also a massive video archive, over 1,800 how-to videos, flower farm documentaries, and even my very first series, JTV. All Life in Bloom episodes, exclusive web content, and farm documentaries are totally free. Just sign up with your email. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there's a paid subscription option that unlocks the full library of how-to videos. Everything from creating bridal bouquets to centerpieces, corsages, and more. Tons of content to explore. You're gonna love it.